All right, what is up, fam? Hopefully this sounds good. I'm trying to optimize the placement of my microphone because if I do this, I think it sounds great. If I don't, it sounds really tinny, but whatever, we'll deal with it. Let's talk about, have you learned your lesson? And in fact, this is the perfect place to ask that question because I'm at the stoplight at one of the state universities around where I live. Have you learned your lesson? What does that mean? What do I mean by have you learned your lesson? Well, everything in life is a lesson. You know, I come from a Christian background, although I can be a little bit rough around the edges depending on who I'm talking to when it comes to just talking about Christianity. Anyway, that being said, I come from a background that God wants me to always be improving, that He's putting lessons in my life for a specific reason, for me to become a better person. When I was growing up, I had a pretty rough background, not from a sense of being in, it must have like a National Guard thing here too. I don't know if that's it might be an ROTC thing. Anyway, squirrel. I have some kind of ADHD, although not diagnosed, so that's very easy to happen. Anyway, all that being said, I had a pretty rough background when it came to stuff, to the point where we were very, very, very poor at one point. It was during those times that I was taught very valuable lessons. God is always trying to scream at you and teach you when you are in pain, or when you are feeling unmotivated or depressed. There's a very controversial figure out there named Andrew Tate who said there is no such thing as depression. You don't have depression. You are depressed because you are living a crap life. That it is your body's natural reaction. Your body's natural reaction to motivate you to change something about you. And there's a lot of truth in that.
In 500 feet, turn left onto Willow Avenue.
Thank you. Thank you, Tesla lady. There's a lot of truth to that. One of the issues with it that I have is that it's very hard to beat depression, especially when you start. It feels like you're almost stuck in mud. But at the same time, it's very, very, very true that God is trying to teach you something. That's the same thing when you are struggling with alcohol, you're struggling with drugs, you're struggling with any type of addiction. God is trying to give you signals to say, hey, your life is crap right now. Let me show you a better way. So going back to when I was young, there were several instances where I learned that I learned from the mistakes that my parents made. My father, bless his heart, I'm not trying to disparage him at all. He's tried his best. Father, being an alcoholic, left us when we were really young, and not only that, we kind of rekindled our relationship when I was in my late teens, and then after a bit of rescuing him from some of his addictions, we had a really rough breakup. But right now we're back on. I text him I love you. That's about where we're at right now. Through all of these different things growing up, with my father, with my mother passing when I was 10, all these different situations, I learned something about human nature. I learned something about how we as human beings cope with pain, cope with not living the life that we're meant to live, not living our purpose, and so on. Cope with seeing your family, your friends, the people that you love making stupid decisions and trying to rescue them, and knowing that when you try and rescue them, it's not gonna, good lesson in life is that more often than not, they don't want to be rescued, and you end up hurting yourself and making their situation even worse, which I learned very well with several people. But the point of all of this is that God is always trying to teach you a lesson. If you're depressed, let's just say depressed, if you're depressed, are you working out? Are you optimizing your body? Are you saying with gratitude? Are you saying good things to your husband, your wife, whomever it might be, your children? Are you telling them how much you love them in notes, right? Are you praying? Are you seeking out help? One of the things that I sought out, that when I was really, really stuck with stuff, I actually sought out a hypnotherapist, and that really helped a ton. I was desperate because I was doing stupid stuff with alcohol and so on. I was really, really, really desperate, and I ended up seeking out I ended up working with a guy named Mr. Banks, really cool guy, and I didn't think it was going to work, but I had some major breakthroughs when it came to changing. All of these things that are occurring and happening to you, all of them, any type of pain is there for a reason. I mean, think of grabbing a hot plate or a hot skillet or whatever. That pain, that searing pain that's in your hand, it's meant to do what? The reason you were given pain receptacles, it's receptacles. The reason why you were given pain receptors was so that you remove your hand when something's hot or painful or stabbing or whatever. When something is damaging your body, it's telling you, let go, right? Well, if that's the case, the same thing goes with that emotional feeling, or the feelings of not being fulfilled, the feeling of being depressed, the feeling of being angry, the feeling of feeling guilt, shame. All these different things are there as a reaction to force you to take action on something. But a lot of the times people don't want to learn that lesson because it's very comfortable where they're at. If you're struggling financially and you are worried about your finances, that worry is your body and God telling you that you need to make a change. So you should be reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad or Cash Flow Quadrant, right? Rework is if you ever wanted to start your own little side business stuff, Rework is one of the best business books I've ever read. But at least at a minimum, you should have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you're just listening to music all day while you're driving, if you are watching Netflix for a few hours a day, and you hear me say this quite a bit, and it shows you how much I hate Netflix and that whole habit. I used to be in that habit. I used to watch Simpsons all day. I used to watch Simpsons, and whatever was on that I liked, I would spend hours. I used to play video games all the day a dang time too. So I'm not one to talk, right? And this was not too long ago. What was that? The Oculus Quest. I used to love that. Play that, do Echo VR, and it was a great way to escape and feel like I was doing something. Yay, my team won, and what did that do? Nothing. It really did nothing. I wasn't going to be a pro gamer or anything like that. It was going to lead to nowhere. And it was not a workout. There are some games that give you a good workout, but I could not justify it being a workout. It was not that great of a workout game, right? So all of these things are there to force you to do something different. For me, I struggle with my weight. I mentioned this in one of the other videos. Struggle with my weight. I would constantly try to do different things. So what did I do? I ended up getting a nutritionist who figured out all my macros, things like that, and said, this is what you're going to be doing for your exercising, and boom, right? I also do jujitsu. I lift weights. I needed that external help, but it took a while to figure out how to make that happen. There are always ways to escape that feeling that you have, to get out of that feeling that you have that's there to prod you to learn that lesson, okay? So all that being said, what are you struggling with right now? What's one thing? Whether it's alcohol, you're struggling with alcohol, you're struggling with drugs, you're struggling with your weight, struggling with depression, struggling with anxiety, worry. What's that lesson that you need to learn from that? This week, if you can, you should spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes just asking yourself questions. Why am I feeling this way? What's the story that I'm telling myself behind why I'm feeling this way? So if you're feeling depressed, what do you feel is the story about why you feel depressed? Because there's always a story. Well, I'm depressed because my wife she won't cook dinners, or she's not interested in me anymore, and it's because she yada 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 yada. Ask yourself what the story is. Then what is after that, ask yourself, what is the evidence that story is true? And then after that, ask yourself, is this story actually really true? A lot of times it's not. What I like to do, I do what's called stacks from Wake Up Warrior. If you ever go to, I highly recommend going to wakeupwarrior.com. It's really awesome. But you then change that story. You give yourself a better story. So after you looked into that original story, what's your desired story? What do you want it to be? Well, my wife isn't interested in me because I'm 300 pounds. And so I put myself into that situation. And because I put myself into that situation, I can get myself out. I put on 100 pounds, I can lose 100 pounds. While it might have been easier to and more tasty to gain that 100 pounds, that tells me that I have control over that. I can remove 100 pounds. I can build muscle. In fact, 50 of those pounds I'm going to put on as muscle and be a bodybuilder. Changing and reframing that story is a powerful way to learn your lesson. Because let's face it, majority of the time, even if someone pissed you off or even if somebody's doing stuff, a lot of the times it's you that is the problem. Nobody likes to hear that. Nobody likes to hear that. I get it. But majority of the time, it's me that's the problem. We're in the same boat, dude. Just the way it is. So check out your story. So what is the story you're telling yourself? Is the story true? What is the evidence of the story? And then what would you like that story to be? Let's reframe that story. So do that this week. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Like this video. It takes 1 second literally to press the thumbs up button. And subscribe. It takes like 2 seconds. Check out prosulum.com, prosulum.com. And I will check you out in the next video. See ya. Peace.